Hey there, this video is going to address section 3 of the Alternative Topics book, section 3 of the Alternative Topics book. So the first thing is you should read the little introduction to section 3 because those little introductions go ahead and try to frame what you're going to read and try to explain, hey, this is why this is important. These videos are meant to augment that in some way. So just to give you a little more thick description as to what's going on. So really what's going on in section 3 is we're getting into culture and the effects of culture on remedies and cures and healthcare, and essentially trying to explain why it's kind of hard sometimes to go in and, let's say, do medical research within, let's say, third world countries, try to get in and do some type of vaccine research, and why you're going to get some pushback, what some of the problems are. And again, you're going to get in this kind of this clash, if you will, this clash between culture and norms and Western medicine kind of banging their heads against each other. So that's kind of the first thing you're going to pick up. Second thing you're going to pick up is just within particular cultures, and this is the article on kidney disease and certain cultures and just eating habits and things like that. And if you're trying to come in and trying to deal with, I believe it's renal disease, which is mentioned in the article in there. If you need to go in and start addressing what people eat, etc., it can be really hard, especially within culture-based diets, even here in the United States, to come in and say, hey, how you're eating, you can't do that anymore because it's really negatively affecting your health. And if you keep eating that way, it's going to be, you already have problems, it's even going to get worse. And how hard that is to actually go in and get people to change even their diets. And I mean, and what's interesting about that is that, think about what you eat and what you ingest every day, and think about how much what you ingest is culture based and you can think of culture in any particular way you want. If you're in your early 20s, for instance, one could argue fast food is kind of a culture-based type of way to eat for individuals who are in their early 20s, for instance. Or if you are of a particular race, ethnicity background, there might be certain foods, etc., drinks, etc., that are just part of the community, part of what you do. And imagine if someone came in and said, okay, you can't do that anymore because it's negatively affecting your health. How hard it would be to go ahead and capitulate with those rules and basically go against what's going on with culture. So there's a little article in there having to deal with that. And then in addition, there's the next bit of writing has to deal with just historically what's gone on in this country in terms of health and healthcare and culture-based remedies. All right, so let me create a little arc here next few minutes. All right, so here's the deal. Getting back to this clashing between culture and Western medicine. Look, there are what certain cultures and communities do is they if for lack of information, essentially, is that there's like a cause and effect that's put into place. Like, in other words, we're going to find, as human beings, we want to make attributions. We want to make sense of the world. Okay, that's just what we do. And to help make sense of the world, what we do is we look for cause and effect, and we'll look for anything to be cause and effect. And look, superstitions are in fact some form of cause and effect. So if you have any, don't walk under a ladder. There's a black cat, and that walked in front of us. Because we start putting together these kind of cause and effect things, even though there's no evidence behind them. By the way, if you're curious, the bad luck about walking under the ladder, why that started, at least anecdotally, what I heard, is because when you walk under a ladder and somebody drops something, it hits you on the head. So that's why you don't walk under a ladder. It's bad luck. Well, no, because you can get hit on the head with something. But the bad luck thing carries more weight. People go, oh, it's bad luck, I can't do that. So anyway, again, that's anecdotal. That's me not being a scientist. But anyway, putting back on my scientist hat here. So essentially, within the first couple articles deal with essentially trying to get some type of Western medicine vaccine research into Africa, and then what's the push and pull there in terms of trying to implement that. And it's amazing because what happens is you are coming in and saying, hey, we need to do this. And culture and norms are pushing back saying, no, we already have our cause and effect here. We don't trust this because it's new and we haven't seen it before. And the second thing is that, you're gonna disrupt what our typical cause and effect things are. So again, take a look at those first couple articles in there because they do kind of underscore, at least in terms of implementation of vaccine research in Africa, what the push and pulls are. And again, there's a lot of sense making that goes on out there already. And one thing too in those early articles has to deal with, again, cause and effect. The reason why people are getting sick in this town isn't because of HIV/AIDS. It's because there's a sorcerer who lives down a couple houses. So what we need to do is banish the sorcerer. And what's interesting is if you banish as a culture, as a community, as a town, if you banish the sorcerer, there's a good chance, because there tends to be these arcs in infection and disease. There's a good chance that once you banish this person, a month later, infections go down and everything, and there's your cause and effect. So even though banishing that individual really shouldn't have done anything, in fact, we end up believing that it did. So I found that interesting. So go ahead and those first couple articles deal with that. We then get into the article of renal disease, which I already talked about before. And the last article, which I think is super important, is this idea of healthcare within African American communities and here in the United States, and how things formed. And so, and this generalizes to almost anything that you can think of. And look, here's the deal: if you, it can even refer to things currently in current time. If you, let's say here's Western medicine, right? And it's available to many people. Well, what if you withheld Western medicine from a group of individuals? Okay, so and that actually is what happened in the African American community going back 100, 150 years ago, etc. So what happens when you do that? And what occurs is that, again, you have Western medicine here, and it's available to many, many individuals, but then there's a whole group of people and individuals who do not have access to that. And so what happens? Well, this group of individuals needs to figure out how to come up with their own remedies and cures, and they reach out to other cultures and other ways, again, cause and effect. And they may decide, okay, this, using these, for lack of a better term, homeopathic remedies are going to work better because it's the only thing you have available. So whether we go back 150 years ago and, hey, you can't see, if you're African American, you can't go see white doctors. It's like, it's illegal. You can't do it. So you got to come up with your own cures. Now, what happens is that then sticks with that culture, okay, and so it even goes into real time, meaning current time. So something that may have occurred 150 years ago, 100 years ago, it ends up sticking, and it becomes intertwined with that particular culture, basically not trusting Western medicine. A big reason why is because you didn't have access, so you're going to be like, okay, forget it. We're going to create our own kind of medical way and how to deal with things. And that's actually a smart thing to do. It's either that or don't get well at all. So you have that. The other thing is, keep in mind that you had up through the 1950s and 60s, you still had separate but equal treatment for African Americans in terms of healthcare. So same thing. You're like, okay, well, here's Western medicine and here's this, and you have some access to it, but it's separate but equal. So, and in fact, we know historically that the whole separate but equal idea just was not good, So for a zillion different reasons, and so you had kind of this lesser access to treatment, and again, so it perpetuates these types of cures and remedies, et cetera, that are available. So basically, there's been this inbred mistrust of Western medicine, and then even when some access was granted, it was subpar, and then that leads to, again, a continuation, if you will, of using different remedies and also underscoring this idea of mistrust. So this would generalize as well to individuals of Hispanic descent who immigrated to our country. So whether you're talking about individuals whose families immigrated here from Mexico or anywhere, in fact, and then for some reason could not access healthcare, regular Western medicine healthcare immediately, such as who? Such as, let's say, individuals who were illegal immigrants for a while, families that came over here and maybe eventually got naturalized, but for a number of years lived illegally. If you're living in that kind of state of fear, if you will, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to go seek out Western medicine. What I'm going to do is hang on to the cultural cures and stuff that I grew up with, let's say in Mexico or some other country, and adhere to that. And why would you do that? Well, again, in certain countries, such as Mexico, for instance, there may not have been in certain townships really good healthcare. And so again, within the culture, you come up with these different cultural remedies, and those things, they are perceived to work. And even though scientifically they may not be, may not even have been ever tested to see if they work. So anyway, so that's what I mean by generalize. We can generalize it to other race ethnicity groups. We can even, and this was in the beginning of the book, but this idea of certain cultures, there are high socioeconomic status Anglo families, white families that live in Marin County up in Northern California who are very anti-vaccination. And that's part of that particular culture. And there, of course, are problems with that. You know, if you don't get your kids vaccinated for mumps, for instance, and measles, et cetera, guess what? They can get measles. And so, getting the MMR shots. So you get it. You can see it. If you come in from a cultural lens, you start seeing things that you didn't see before. And that's the point of this chapter, really, is for you to think about the effects of culture in terms of health and healthcare and remedies and norms and what takes place. This idea, and also why that ended up forming. And a big reason why that ends up forming, this idea of cultural cures, et cetera, is because of lack of access, lack of information available. So you have to make up your own information, and this push for cause and effect, So anyway, so take a look at section 3, the different readings, and that's the big thing I want you to get out of this. All right, thanks, folks.